Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Keynote podcast, a podcast where I, Solaris, sit down with up-and-coming artists in the electronic music scene and interview them. And today, I am joined by Nick, aka Fowler.
Hello, I'm Fowler, aka Nick.
So Nick is a producer and he is a mechanic, and he is from New Brunswick in Canada. He doesn't really produce any set genre, but he is most known for having releases with Vancouver-based record label Monstercat, which I'm sure all of you know. And he also has releases in Rocket League, and he has support from a lot of established artists in the scene, such as Pixel Terror and Don Diablo. So welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. You actually caught me on a release day. Just released the song Existentia on Monstercat. So I'm coming off the high of, seeing everybody enjoying my music and whatnot. So it's a good day.
That's really good. So let's talk a little bit about Existentia then as a track. Can you kind of give us a little bit of kind of history on it and just talk a little bit about it then?
Yeah, a lot of people have been wanting me to do drum and bass for quite a while. And this isn't like a pure drum and bass track. The first drop's actually kind of like trap or like drum step. I'm also notoriously bad with genres, so I might be completely wrong about that. But it's like halftime drum and bass, whatever you want to call that. So a lot of people have wanted me to do drum and bass for a long time. And honestly, I just was like never that confident in that style. But I decided to just force myself to finish a drum and bass song, and I think it actually turned out pretty good. So that's kind of like production wise, that's where that song came from. Me just trying to experiment with finishing a drum and bass track for once. In terms of the subject matter, it's about my existential crisis that I have daily about wondering if anything exists, if this podcast really exists, or if it's just a figment of my imagination. I have no idea, and there's no way I would ever know for sure. So that's kind of the idea behind the song, but it was really me having a lot of fun with sound design, doing some epic shit. If you download the stems, there's a couple stems called Epic Shit 1 and Epic Shit 2, and those are basically like guitar and brass and strings and just kind of, it's almost like orchestral epic stuff, and that was a lot of fun to do too. And it leads into kind of a cool sound design first drop, and then into a drum and bass drop the second time. So I finally followed through on the drum and bass demands of the community. So I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, so I think the drum and bass demands of the community, because I've been in the Monstercat community for a pretty long time. When you started releasing in 2018, you released the song Numb featuring Chanel. And there's that one kind of bridge section that has the little breakbeat pattern. And I just remember all these people in the community just being like, oh, Fowler, make actual drum and bass. Make it full-on drum and bass track.
Yeah. So I finally, well, I guess I didn't quite fully follow through, because I mean, like I said, it starts off with the halftime drum and bass. And I was actually kind of like, I was thinking like, imagine how mad people would be if I teased them again and didn't give them like a full drum and bass drop. But luckily I did, because I don't know if I would have survived that. So yeah, it feels good though to do drum and bass. I mean, I love listening to drum and bass. I just, for some reason, it's not even like I think I could do it. And I mean, I guess I kind of proved to myself that I can do it, but it just doesn't come as naturally as other styles of music do to me. So it was a bit of a challenge.
But we all know you love to just experiment with a lot of different genres, and that's been really prevalent in the past couple of years since you've really kind of made a name for yourself, especially with the fact since Monstercat has picked you up over the past couple of years, and you've just been kind of flourishing a lot, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, Monstercat was a big turning point for me in my artist career. I've had a career in writing for TV for about a decade now, and that's all I've done for a living for the past nine and a half years, give or take. And I never really had a whole lot of success in terms of numbers, or like reach, like plays and streams and all the kind of metrics that people use to measure their own success. My solo stuff was really me just having fun and not really caring about those things. So now that I'm actually starting to get some decent metrics and and starting to generate a bit of income from it as well. That's really exciting for me because I don't have to compromise anything. I'm still just doing whatever the hell I want. It might be totally off the wall, might be, maybe drum and bass 1 minute and then an ambient track the next. I like to think that my fans are fans of me and not necessarily just a specific style that I create. And that's why it kind of like, I might not have the biggest fan base in the world, but I love my fans because they're like my friends, and they'll support pretty much everything I do. They may or may not like all the tracks, and that's perfectly fine. But I don't feel like the need to just keep making Numb over and over again, that sort of thing. So Monstercat's been really great for that.
Yeah, so that's really awesome to see, especially since you're very active in the community as well.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't be, like there's a bunch of people that all kind of have very similar, likes and passions and stuff, and they're all, I mean, I love internet humor. I love memes and, making weird. Anybody who knows me knows that, I don't think I usually ever take normal pictures. They're always cursed in some way or another. So and like the internet is this kind of community on the internet. That's really where those things flourish. So I just feel at home, and it's like I can just hop onto the Monstercat server or my Discord server and just post like the most random, weirdest shit, and people enjoy it, and I enjoy it. So it's like a win-win, right?
Yeah, I guess so. So how about we get into just a little bit of your history? I just kind of want to know, how did the whole kind of music thing kind of start for you? Was music something that you were like always interested in? Was there something that really kind of made you say like, whoa, that's really cool, I want to do that? Like, how did music start for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely told this story quite a few times because it's basically how things have started or did start for me. I never, I came from a family that's not super musical. My sister played flute in like an orchestral band, and she did really well at that and whatnot. But in terms of like my parents or the rest of my family, there's some musicians, but it's not like, some people just come from a long line of musicians. That definitely isn't me. And the music stuff never really came natural to me. I always had to work really hard at it to do what I wanted to. And when I was in middle school, I think I was like 13 years old. I bought my first electric guitar off of my cousin for like $300 or something. He gave me a smoking deal because it's like a wicked guitar. It's a '88 Fender Strat heavy metal edition. It's like aquamarine. And anyway,
As a
I got
guitar
that.
player, I love Fenders, so yeah.
Yeah, and I was born in 1988, and this guitar was made in 1988. So it's just like the universe telling me to play guitar or whatever. But anyway, I started playing in like rock bands and metal bands, and I mean, I'm using the word band very loosely. When I was 13, we weren't exactly touring, the Southwest or anything like that. We just were kind of jamming and kind of playing around, and just the fact that we could plug our guitars into something and make them super loud. And I live out in the middle of nowhere, or I live in the city now, but I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So sometimes we just like put our amps outside and crank them up full blast, and you like hear the sound of your guitar echoing off of literally a mountain like 5 miles away. And that was cool. Anyway, that kind of got me into making music, and I kept going down that path. Again, I wasn't naturally good at it. Some people could just, even at that age, some of my friends could just pick up a guitar and just rip out a big solo like it was nothing. And I wasn't really good at improvising. I had to really plan it out note for note and practice and practice and practice, and it wasn't easy. But I kept at it, and eventually in high school in 2004, I kind of got tired of relying on other people to make music. When you're in a band, sometimes there's 4 or 5 people that you have to rely on showing up to practice to play with. So my dad got me a copy of Sonar 4, which is a cakewalk product. And I started to record music by myself. I started to like record my guitar, and at first I was just trying to make the same stuff as I was playing in the band, which was metal and hard rock and stuff like that. I actually played in a Rage Against the Machine cover band at the time. So I started to use the computer just as a means of creating music, but having basically a drummer, because I had a bass and I could play bass and guitar. I just needed the drums, and I didn't even care about vocals at that time. I just wanted to learn how to record and stuff like that. So I started doing metal, and then there's like a very discrete point in time where I kind of discovered IDM, like glitchy intelligent dance music stuff, and it was by just turning the tempo up to like 999 or whatever cakewalk the Sonar product let you go up to. I think it was 999, and it just played like the worst sound I'd ever heard, and I loved it. And then that was kind of the basis. I was like, oh, wow. And I had never heard any music like that. You know, like electronic music to me was like Sandstorm, which, no word of a lie, was our graduation song when I graduated high school. And it was in a non-ironic way. I mean, this was before Sandstorm was like a joke. This was like Sandstorm in its peak. So that was our graduation song. Anyway, that's what I thought electronic music was. And like Benny Benassi and stuff. I didn't know there was this whole kind of other side of it and all the weird underground kind of glitchy stuff. So I thought I was pioneering something. I was like, oh my God, I was like sampling keyboard, like the sound of typing on a keyboard. And I sampled my parents' water pump from like down in the basement and making all these just the weirdest noise I could come up with, but then like putting chords over top of them and calling it music. And I really thought I am creating new genres. And then I was in London, Ontario, and I walked into a pawn shop, and for some reason I saw the Richard D. James album on a CD, like Aphex Twin, and for some reason I felt compelled to buy it. That's what I did too. I'd like go into pawn shops and just buy CDs I'd never heard of, and that's kind of how I discovered new music back then. So I bought the Aphex Twins album, Richard D. James, and then I heard that and I was like, okay, I'm not creating anything. This already exists. But I wasn't upset about that. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I got obsessed with like Richard D. James and Autechre and Boards of Canada and these types of weirder kind of electronic music. And I guess that's a very long-winded way of saying I played guitar. I didn't have anybody to play guitar with, so I used my computer. I made weird sounds with my computer. I discovered IDM, and then that led me to where I'm at now.
So yeah, so with that, because like I've talked to a lot of people, the people who I've talked to on this podcast before are younger and like probably around my age, and so haven't really kind of grown up with a lot of like that older stuff, like a lot of the IDM stuff that you're talking about right there, because they all kind of grew up with like Skrillex and like even like the older days of Monstercat when artists like Tristram and Noise Storm were popular. So it's kind of really cool to see somebody come from a kind of a different side of the whole electronic music scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I released How We Win, or no, not How We Win, Numb. When I released Numb, my first release on Monstercat, I was aware of Monstercat's existence, and I pitched to Monstercat numerous times, and I didn't get, I didn't land anything until Numb, but I didn't realize that Monstercat was really who they are until I released on them, and then I'm like, oh my God, this community is huge, and the fan base is so active and whatnot. So yeah, I really came from a different place,
Yeah. So, you did mention earlier that you used to compose for like films and TV shows. I just kind of want to know, what was that like for you then?
Oh, I still do. That's still how I pay my bills, and that's still. I mean, if I didn't do that, I'd honestly probably release more Fowler stuff because if anybody who's on my Discord server, like, I'm always in FL Studio, like all the time. I'm either that or working in the garage, but
Right now you are. I can see it on Discord.
am I? Yeah, I still have it open. Yeah. So like I'm always writing because that's how I pay my bills. So I'm always writing for TV or whatnot. And it's great and it's really cool to, get your music on TV shows and seeing it being used in this very widespread manner, reaching millions of people. And knowing at this point, I've got so many songs out there that I could probably turn on the TV and flick to a channel and probably find one of my songs on something because I've done so many tracks for like libraries and stuff like that. That's cool. But at the end of the day, you're kind of supporting somebody else's creative vision with what you're writing. You're writing music to support the visuals that are happening on screen, which is good and satisfying and cool and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, I created the Fowler project just for an outlet where I don't have to worry about I don't have to worry about anybody else's creative vision except myself. And that was the whole point of it. And that's also why I called it Fowler, because that's just my last name. And that's all it was about. Just doing what I want to do. Don't care if it's a 12-minute ambient song and nobody likes it. Like it's just there for me. But I will say that writing for TV it's super fun. It's challenging a lot of the times because I have to do styles that I honestly sometimes don't have any idea how to make it. I have to like listen to the reference material and be like, oh, okay, I guess I'm making this style now, you know. But that's kind of the nature of the work, is that people come to me because they know that I can, if they send me a reference track, I can create within reason. I can do a pretty good job of recreating that style in a very short amount of time. So that's kind of my like selling feature for the people that I work with. They know they can count on me. And if I can't do it, I'll just tell them straight up like, hey, I'm not the guy for this one, you know. But yeah, TV is fun. Pays a lot more than streams on Spotify too, I will say.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because like you said, that's what pays the bills for you.
Exactly, yeah.
And even also, so with your Monstercat releases, and Monstercat, who's had this partnership with Psyonix and Rocket League over the past couple years, and you've had a couple different tracks that have been featured in Rocket League. So how does that feel?
Yeah, that's really cool. I really love on Rocket League how when they feature a new song, it's like the menu music. So it's really cool to like open up Rocket League. I absolutely suck at Rocket League. Like I am
Oh,
so
so
bad.
do I. You're you're not
Yeah.
alone here.
Yeah, the best thing I can do for my team is kind of just like park on the side of the field and watch them. But anyway, it's still really cool to open up the game and hear your music and think, man, how many other people are opening up this game right now, you know, and how many other people. It's really cool because it makes you feel like connected to a huge amount of people, which you don't really get the chance to do in pretty much any other aspect of life unless you're creating content that is getting consumed by like thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Like that's a cool feeling. Sometimes I do take it for granted because I've been kind of exposed to it for years and years. But there is something cool about getting a track on Rocket League and opening the game up and having it played during the menu. That's definitely a cool feeling.
And so what is it that how does your creative process kind of vary from, composing for TV shows like compared to, making electronic music? Is there anything that kind of carries over like between what you do for TV shows and what you do for electronic music and also vice versa?
Yeah, I mean a lot of the creative juices are flowing in a similar way, but I think with TV there's an end in mind, a lot more than what I'm doing when I'm creating for myself, which is another reason why I can finish TV stuff a lot easier than my own stuff. For TV, okay, I got a deadline. I've got this 30-second commercial. They want this. They want it to hit this sort of feeling at this point in time. Like it's structured and there's kind of an infrastructure there already that you just got to fill in with your creativity, as opposed to like super open-ended, like, okay, I'm gonna write Fowler stuff today. I sit down and FL Studio's open and there's nothing there. I'm like, okay, here I go. Like it's usually very experimental. And sometimes I do have like, oh man, I get inspired by hearing something, or something inspires me and I have something in mind for like the end goal. But a lot of the time it's really just me opening up FL Studio and I just start messing around with sounds. And sometimes I don't even have a genre or a style in mind. I'm just like, oh, I wonder what happens if I take the sound of a tambourine and I stretch it out to 3 minutes long, and then, send it through this convolution reverb, and then put it through pulse stretch, and then shorten it back down, and send it through distortion. Like it's just me. And then a lot of the time, like even lyrics, like for How We Win, the lyrics came from me messing around with something, and it wasn't even a vocal, but it sounded like This Is How We Rock. And I was like, oh, okay. Like it was like a sound of like a percussion hit that I stretched way out and sent through a bunch of effects. And then all of a sudden it sounded kind of like it was saying This Is How We Rock. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go from there. So it's very experimental and very much just me messing around, having fun. And I always want to keep my Fowler stuff to be that, which is maybe a little unpredictable, maybe a little not as strategic as getting, like I have a brand for sure, but sonically or style wise, I feel like I could do just about any style of music. And that may or may not be the most strategic thing in the world, but at the end of the day, this project is just for me to mess around, and that's exactly how I do my stuff. So.
And is that what you, I guess, kind of enjoy about just being an artist and just kind of the Fowler project in general? Is that it's basically your thing? It's more just kind of like passion then?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, like, there's a lot of reasons for making music, and some of them are good reasons, and some of them are bad reasons. And honestly, I have a hard time finding new music because I, when I listen to music, and I have this problem when I watch TV shows too, I kind of see through almost to a fault. I see through the actual content to the creator and what they're intending or trying to do. Like, for example, in like a TV show. What is it? Man, my girlfriend and I watched it just for giggles, but it was really bad. It's like Love is Blind or something, I think it's called. And anyway, they would be like, they'd show, say, a couple get into a fight, and then the girl walks off, and then the music would come on, and the music would be like, "I'm so mad at you, but I hope you'll get over it," or like the lyrics are like so on the nose and just like trying to coach me through the scene, and all of a sudden I'm kicked out of even the show whatsoever, and all I'm thinking of is, wow, they felt like they needed to tell me how to feel about this. So like when I listen to new music, all I hear sometimes is the intent, like, oh, somebody will make a track and maybe it just sounds like they thought that like a Skrillex track was cool and they just are trying to replicate it so that people think that they're cool. You know what I mean? And when I hear that, it just kicks me right out. So to get back to your original question, I think I might have forgotten it by now. My Fowler stuff is just, the intention is only to be creative and to not worry about success and to not worry about what people think about this. Oh, do I have to put a snare roll before the drop? It's just what I want to do, and that's it. And if you like it, that's great. And if you don't like it, that doesn't bother me at all. Like, it's not really for you, it's for me. And that's it. And if people like it, that's awesome. And I love it when people do like it, because then I feel like I'm connected to a bigger picture, sort of thing, right?
All right, so let's transition into another topic. I actually mentioned when I opened this podcast that you're also a mechanic. So that's another discipline that you're kind of creative in, and that's just being just very technical. You like to do a lot of technical things, and one of the things that you like to do is building cars, and you also like to race them as well. Would you like to kind of talk a little bit more about kind of the whole car thing and how that kind of started for you then?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I'm like not officially a mechanic. I don't have any sort of schooling or any sort of education. It's all just self-taught stuff. But yeah, you're right. It all ties together. I like electronic music because it's intricate and it's technical, and there's pieces that have to all work together. And my brain enjoys understanding things or being challenged to understand things. So my love for electronic music or creating music is the same as my love for creating cars or fixing cars, diagnosing cars. I love to figure things out. So I haven't always been a car person. And again, my family isn't really into cars. Like, I'm kind of a first generation musician and a first generation car person in my family. My family is super interesting and awesome. I don't mean to paint them like that, but they're into entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So I do come by that a little bit more naturally. But anyway, I got my start in cars with my first car, which was a '99 Hyundai Tiburon. And I was driving home one day and the timing belt broke. And up until that point, I was even nervous to do an oil change because I thought I'd break something. But all of a sudden, now I have a car with a busted engine, because when the timing belt breaks, you bend valves, and it's basically, you got to replace stuff. So I found an engine for like $200 or something, and I thought, well, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. I can't afford to pay somebody to put this engine in. So I'm just gonna like start taking the engine out, I guess. And if it goes well, then that's great. And if not, then I'm no further behind because the car's not going anywhere with this engine in it anyway. So so yeah, I went from like not even wanting to do an oil change to doing an engine swap on my Tiburon. And when I did that, I realized that it's very intimidating, but it's not very difficult. Like, it's just nuts and bolts. And I don't mean to undersell like mechanics by saying that, but like at the same time, it really is just nuts and bolts holding this stuff together. And there's a bit more to it than that, but that's 99% of it. So I successfully swapped the engine over, and that gave me a lot of confidence to be like, well, I mean, if I changed the engine, I probably could change the brakes. I mean, they can't be any harder than doing the engine, right? Um, so yeah, that was my start into playing with cars, and then there's a lot of gratification and satisfaction that I get from spending hours underneath a car, really suffering, cutting my fingers all apart, getting huge bruises everywhere. I actually kind of enjoy that in a weird way because it's like an investment, and then I get to go in my car and now it either works where it didn't work before, maybe it's considerably faster, or I get better times at the races or something like that. It's all very satisfying because I know that I busted my ass to get this mechanical object to the point where it's at, and now I get to kind of reap the benefits of it. So that's kind of why I love working on cars so much. And the whole Talon thing with my artwork, that just happened totally organically. It wasn't like a conscious decision. I wrote the song How We Win, and I was like, well, I guess it kind of makes sense to have like a car going across the finish line, right? And then what did I write after that? Was it anyway, I think I put the headlights in the back, and then I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. And it's super organic. It's super honest because I spend just as much time on cars as I do on music. In fact, the past few months, I've probably spent more time on cars, which is kind of bad because cars cost me money and music makes me money. But anyway, it just kind of all made sense. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess my branding is now my car. And then like my Discord server, there's like Talon memes and Talon emojis, and it just all kind of makes sense. And it's easy because it's natural. I don't have to try. It just post pictures of my car, post videos of me racing. It's just all kind of, it's just me. And that's why when I say I have like really good fans, they're a fan of me as a person and what I do, not just like that one track that I made that has millions of plays or something like that. And that's what I strive for, is having that real connection with my fan base.
And so, yeah, let's kind of bounce off of that and kind of go into a little bit more about, the Talon. Do you kind of want to talk a little bit more about the Talon as a car and kind of the whole story about how that kind of came into your life then?
Yeah, I bought the Talon for I think $700 in 2012. I think May of 2012. Um, I bought it from a place called Bucktouche, which sounds like somebody making fun of like a place that's in the middle of nowhere. And it kind of is, but it's a nice little town. Anyway, I bought it. I had it trailered back because I think the water pump was seized and the alternator was gone on it. It was a $700 car, but it was all-wheel drive and turbocharged and wasn't rusty. So to me, I was like, ooh, this is a good platform. So one of my first mods after getting it like road worthy and road legal and all that stuff, one of my first mods was just putting an ECU into it so I could play with the tuning, because that's super technical and techy. And I always wondered what tuning a car meant. Some people consider tuning a car like putting a set of wheels on it, but I'm talking about getting into the ECU and controlling the fueling and the spark timing and stuff like that. So I put that in it, and then every year since 2012, except last year, because I built the Pulsar last winter, pretty much every single year I've had the Talon in the garage, totally like stripped down to basically nothing, because I'm either putting, redoing the suspension in the chassis, or putting a new engine into it, or changing the turbo setup, or trying a new clutch. Every year it kind of gets built a little bit differently based on what I've learned from the previous year racing it. The car is kind of like, it's approaching legendary status, and which I'm totally okay with. And anybody who owns an old Eagle Talon is probably totally okay with that too. I'd love to, I'm not saying I'm there yet, but I'd love to get like my music to a place where the Talon becomes so powerful that we can get it in Rocket League. Like, that's my ultimate life goal, is to get the Talon in Rocket League. And then I'd actually have to like get good at playing Rocket League, because I wouldn't want to let the Talon down,
You'd have to maybe just become like a streamer or something.
Yeah, I've become a full-time Rocket League player. Don't even make music anymore, because like I'm done. Like, that was my final goal. All right, guys, I'm done. I'm retiring. The Talon's in Rocket League. Here we go.
Your life is complete. The music thing is complete. Fowler's over.
Yeah, delete everything, just cancel everything and just become a Rocket League player.
So I think I'm kind of coming towards, some of the ends of my questions here. So I think I have a couple just kind of fun questions for you.
Sure.
Um, so I guess one of the questions is like, how difficult has it been to just kind of really, I guess, kind of stand out as an artist before? I guess kind of like when you started out, how hard was it for you to be able to kind of like stand out to how things are now?
Um, I guess what I'd have to say on that is I never really had that challenge because if you think about what I said about the purpose of my project, it was all just for me to be me. So nobody else is me. So it's just me. And I wasn't trying to create whatever styles were hot at the time to be successful. So just kind of naturally, I think I stick out because I'm not trying to do what everybody else is doing. I'm just trying to have fun and do me. And that has led me to a very slow growth. I mean, I've been at this for a long time, and I think that's something that a lot of newer producers maybe have a hard time with is like, this is not something that you do for a year and all of a sudden you've got a million fans, right? Sometimes you get a song on TikTok, all of a sudden your song has a million fans. All of a sudden that, that beat that you made, everybody knows it, but are they a fan of you? Have you taken the time to grow your brand and your community and offer your fans something that only you can offer them? Maybe not necessarily. So that to me, it's much better to have a slow organic growth where you really earn every one of your fans like almost individually. Whether you know the real names or not, I can look on my Discord list and look at pretty much anybody in my Discord chat or Discord kind of channel where it lists the users. If I scroll down, not all of them, but I would say probably like 75% of them, I can look at one of them and be like, oh, I remember that time that that person did that thing on my server. Like I try to earn my fans. I don't try to just take shortcuts to get huge amounts of plays because that's not the goal for me. The goal for me is to have a sustainable fan base that is a part of something. They're part of something. I'm part of something. There's this something. So to me, sticking out is as easy as just being yourself and not trying to replicate what's popular, not trying to replicate that drop that everybody loves in that song because it's so transparently obvious, at least to me, when people do that. This big song blows up like the Chris Lake Lose My Mind or whatever, and then all of a sudden you hear I think that's what it's called. Then all of a sudden you hear all these other producers creating the exact same track and you're like, okay, I see what you're doing. Or like a meme comes out and then a bunch of people are like making meme songs out of the memes. To me, that's how you don't stick out, that you're using cymatics, pre-made wubs, and your whole song is just made out of those. That's not how you're sticking out. That's how you're trying to make a song that is as good as something else that you heard. And that's what I don't do that. I'm just like, hey, I'm going to do this thing that I like. And if you like it, that's awesome. And if you like me, that's even better. But if not, then that's okay. Maybe next time,
Yeah. And so a couple other questions I have for you. Is there like something that you kind of wish you had known, like when you started producing then?
Um, I wish that I had known this isn't necessarily a technical thing, but one of the most important things that I've learned over the years, I think, is that you should value the relationships over the money. And that makes financial sense as well. Like to me, I've, in my early years, I've nickel and dime people. I've fought over 5% of a writer's share of a song that might have earned $100, like it's not worth, I just basically split everything 50-50. And that's honestly more generous than I probably should do, considering the fact that I'm doing all of the production, I'm doing the mixing, the mastering, everything. Usually you would keep the master, like you'd keep ownership of the master, or you'd buy out the vocalist performance for a certain amount of money, and now you own the whole master. I just split everything 50-50 because to me, the difference of me owning 100% of the master versus 50% of the master might equate to like a few $100 or something. And I'd rather just have a nice relationship where everybody feels like they're being treated properly and we work more together in the future. And that's a more prosperous style of relationship than trying to nickel and dime like, hey, I think I deserve 60% because I did this and this and this. You know, like I've done that in the past, and all that's done is make me not feel good and make the other person not feel good, and then maybe we don't work together in the future. So I've just 50-50, whatever. You come on, as long as you're taking part in the writing of the song, it's a 50-50 or 33-33-33 sort of thing, right? And that, to me, I think that's the most important thing I've learned in this industry, is that the relationship is far more important than any one paycheck that you might get out of it.
And is that kind of how you have a lot of relationships with a lot of the people you collaborate with then?
Yeah, 100%. And that's also like why I find it hard to collaborate with people I don't know, you know, like the whole collab bro thing. It's just it's weird
Which
for
I mean,
me.
it's just become kind of a meme at this point. The whole kind of, hey,
Mm.
collab, bro, you love your music, but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I'm just like, why would that make any sense? I don't even know you. Like, writing a song should be an kind of an intimate process. I love writing music with people and talking about, you know, your feelings and talking about your experiences and stuff like that. That's part of songwriting, at least kind of like in the traditional sense. And I guess maybe I'm a little more traditional than some people, but um yeah, I need to know you. I like collaborating with my friends, or like, you know, it's almost like a dating thing, you know? It's almost like a one night stand versus like somebody you've built up a relationship with. And that's why I find it hard to collaborate with just kind of randos from the internet sort of thing.
yeah. So would you say that kind of, I guess the internet has kind of made it harder then than it was like, well, because like back in the day, as you talked
Back
about
in
with
your day,
back in your day, I mean, yeah, just like before, I guess kind of the whole kind of Fowler thing when you kind of had all that band stuff, because like that was in school and like
hmm
you knew people from school who you had like people in school who you could hang out with and like do
Yeah.
music with, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, like that still continues today. I have done some online writers camps through COVID. I usually do in-person writers camps where they fly you to like a studio and then you get to write with a bunch of people you don't even know, but then by the end of like the week, you're all best friends sort of thing. Like that's really fun. But yeah, you're right. Like I just when somebody creates like half of a song and then sends it to you and says collab, bro, like it's just hard for me because I'm like, what are we trying to accomplish? And honestly, the collab with Slow Palace, it
Already
started
gone?
yeah, it
Yeah.
started out like that, and we couldn't get any traction until I got on a couple calls with them and discussed like what's the idea of the song, what, and we got Quinn involved, and we started to write a song as opposed to just like here's like a cool track, can you finish it, you know, that sort of thing. Um, and that song it is a great song. It just took it took the actual writing process. I don't think I could ever just take like a song that somebody else has kind of half created and put in the other half, because to me almost like a foreign, it's kind of weird, you know, like I don't know, we're both working on this thing but we don't know each other, we haven't really talked about it. Like to me it's just hard, difficult. Some people can do it and that's great, but I'm just not one of those people.
Yeah. So then that kind of leads me to this question. Are there any people who you would love to collab with that you don't necessarily like know personally?
uh I don't know. I mean, not really. I mean, there's people that I listen to and I love their music, and from a technical point of view, yeah, I'd love to collaborate with some of those people, but I actually wouldn't collaborate with them unless I knew them first, because it just would be weird to me. So I guess that's kind of a boring answer. There's lots of people who I love their music and love their style, and like Fool, or who else? Tony Romero. Like I love their tracks. I love their tracks, right? I don't know them personally, so I don't know what it would be like to write a track with them. But yeah, I understand the question. I mean, I get it all the time, and My favorite band is Nine Inch Nails, but I don't think that I would ever collaborate with them because that it just would feel like weird or forced unless I like by chance ran into them at a festival and like got to know them and there was a bit of a pre-existing relationship there, then it would make sense. But just kind of coming out of nowhere and being like, "Hey, do you want to write a song with me?" Like that's just it just seems strange to me.
All right. So another question is, do you just have any advice for, producers who might be listening to this and who want to or are currently trying to break further into kind of the music kind of field? Have any advice for them?
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice, besides the whole value the relationships over the money thing, that's definitely a big one. My next big one that would refer more to like the production side of things is don't try to follow trends because if you are following a trend, you are by definition behind the trend, right? Like don't listen to it's okay to get inspired. It's okay to listen to tracks and and I do it too. You listen to a track and you're like, "Oh man, I want to do something like that." And that's totally okay. As long as you are expressing yourself and not doing it for the wrong reason because at the end of the day, even people who have no musical knowledge, they can kind of hear through that to the actual intent of the song. And if your intent is just to be, to get a song on a certain platform or to hit a certain amount of plays, that's not really being creative. That's kind of almost being manipulative, like in a very mild form. So just do you, it's okay to be inspired. It's okay to borrow ideas from people and incorporate it into your own sound as long as it's your sound and you're portraying yourself and you're adding something creatively to the world. So that's my, I think, piece of advice I'd give them.
Well, that's some really good advice, and I think that will really be helpful to like pretty much everybody who's listening to this podcast. I'm really happy that I heard something like that today. And
Yeah,
I
right on.
just really appreciate, you coming on the show today.
No problem, man. It's been a pleasure to chat. I usually sit in the studio by myself for hours at a time. So here I am talking.
And so that kind of wraps up this interview then. I'm Solaris. This is the Keynote podcast. This is also Nick, aka Fowler. And if you are watching via YouTube or listening via any streaming service, just be sure to give me a follow or, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.